Happy fantasy football draft season, everyone. As we get deeper into August, we're ready to help you plan for your own drafts. Tonight, we'll be running a 10-team, one-quarterback PPR redraft mock. On this show, we show respect to the smaller leagues. More importantly, we'll be helping you figure out where players are going and getting drafted in this format. Coming to you live on Optimus Fantasy, this is Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. Ladies, gentlemen, and all those in between or outside of it, welcome to Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan, right here on Optimus Fantasy, coming to you every Monday evening until week 1 of the NFL season. I am your host, Evan Sather. Tonight, I have a hardworking, high-roller guest who was the 2020 Kings Classic champion. He is a fantasy lead at The Huddle. He is a fantasy football analyst for both FF Today and Fantasy Points. He is also a co-host of the Football Diehards podcast. Please welcome to the show, Doug Orth. Doug, how are you, my friend?
I am doing well, thank you. How are you doing, Evan?
I am fantastic myself. I was glad to at least scarf in a little bit of a dinner before a show tonight with how schedules were going, but happy to make this happen.
As am I.
Yeah, so I'll be honest too, Doug. Like, I'm fairly new to the fantasy football scene, and coincidentally enough, your very charming girlfriend, Carla, had me on her show, Game Changers, on the sports affiliation. And I didn't really know that much about her at first, being that I just only heard about her through my buddy Lou Brunson, who she had interviewed before me. So I asked her nicely if I could come on her show, and she was nice enough to have me on in April, which was maybe about 2 weeks after my first jiu-jitsu competition. So at least I had enough to talk about with that. Yeah. And, she was hitting me with all kinds of gotcha type questions, and I was just like, foiled me again. Carla got me again. She didn't even have to get me to take Zumba to get me.
Yep. I won't say it's a day in the life, but no, she can be tough, but she's fair, tough and fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I agree with that. At least she wasn't unfair to me. I can at least say that. So, Doug, you've been very busy all over the fantasy space with a lot of good writing. I'm seeing over on The Huddle, you updated an article released yesterday handling the 1.11 position, which the back of the first round, I feel like, is arguably tougher than the very center, because at least if you're in the center, like at 6 or 7, it's roughly the same amount of spaces that come back to you, so you never have to worry about picks coming right back to you, which it can bring on some pressure. But I'm just looking at this article that you wrote today here. So, we're looking at guys that tend to go here, and then when it swings back around, it goes to the 202. Tell us a little more about this article, what we can expect when we read this for ourselves.
Yeah, so actually it's a 12-part series. So I did 1 through 12. And so the theory, not the theory, but the thinking behind it is that most drafts are, you build your core, the way that your draft is going to unfold basically is constructed in those first 3 rounds, whichever direction you want to go. And it's important not to have a preset notion on which way you're going to go. I see that in the high stakes game as much as I see it with amateurs, is that, okay, I'm going to go 0 RB, or I'm going to go bully this, or it just go stick with value, grabbing as much value as you can as often as you can, and then let the draft unfold, and trust your board, trust that you know what value that each guy has. Anyway, to answer your question, like I said, so this series, like I said, I take the first 3 picks from pick 1 through pick 12, and just kind of play out as to the thinking as to why this draft unfolded the way it did, and then I have at the end of my 1,000 or so words, and I have a little summary as far as different routes or constructions that you might consider from that spot.
It looks like you carried over a lot of your writing into the Football Diehards podcast, where I see over the last several days, with several episodes, you've gone through picks 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and then 9 through 12. Is there a lot of crossover between what you've been writing for The Huddle and the Football Diehards podcast?
I guess so. I mean, that 12-part series took me long enough, even though I had prepared for the draft plan podcast. So, but yeah, there's a fair amount of carryover, but there are different things. We go about 35 to 40 minutes on each one of those draft plans, the early, middle, and late podcast. So we go 30, 40 minutes. I can guarantee you the articles aren't going to take you that long to read. So we do offer something different on the podcast, and I do offer something different in the writing.
Indeed, yeah, because I went through the 111 article that you wrote today on the huddle, and I love the way you have everything structured, where you don't put too much fluff in the article for the sake of having it at a certain length, and then when it's time to lay out the draft picks of what you can expect in any given 12-team league, it's organized very well with draft pick, round one, what you can expect with round two in this series. So I got to give you kudos for the way you structured this as well. Easy to read, not terribly long, and multiple good parts that can be considered as now fantasy football draft season's heating up.
Appreciate you saying that. I'm just, all I'll add is I hope to become more of a wizard with the our software is Presto, but I hope to become enough of a wizard with Presto where we can actually have lines and we can go across as opposed to up and down. That was, as I was trying to structure the article, it wasn't working horizontally, so I had to do it vertically. But next step will be trying to get some lines in there so it doesn't look like it's all running together. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah, no, I never would have guessed that it could be better just based on what I looked at too. So you must be doing something right, at least with what the tools that you're given.
Well, again, I'm new to this, so it's probably as much on me as it is anything that I just need to dabble with the software a little bit more. But it's coming along. It's coming along.
I also wanted to ask you about what you've been writing lately with FF Today as well, where you have your top 200 big board for the high stakes league, FFPC. You have version 1 that was released 2 days ago, which would have been Saturday the 16th. So yeah, I was going through this as well, just looking at the big data we have for the top 200. You have the top several colored tiers between picks 1 through 10, 11 through 24, 25 through 43. So it looks like there was a lot of good work that went into the FFPC top 200 here. So as you were writing this, so you have your success score index based off of targeting carry predictions. What else can you tell us that went into creating this article for folks that want to get into high stakes stuff?
Yeah, so I go into detail with the in the intro of each of those big board articles, but most of what happens, it's mostly powered by the target and touch projections. But what I do that is different than most people is, so I include a let's just say a variable. In my formula, I include matchup, what I call matchup analysis, and that's not just basing it off of last year's stats. That's not saying, for example, Washington had a bad secondary last year, so I'm using their information from last year. That's me projecting Marshawn Lattimore being there a full season. That's me predicting Mike Sanders still playing a significant amount of slot. I'm also especially with receivers. So I use the Washington example. So let's say they're playing the Eagles. Okay, so I kind of work off a 40-40-20 assumption unless I have reason to assume differently. What does that mean? I assume that a receiver is going to face a corner 40% of the time. So let's just say A.J. Brown. He's going to face Lattimore 40% of the time. He's going to face the other outside corner, whoever wins that job 40% of the time, and Mike Sanders still 20% of the time. Now, if I have reason to believe that those percentages are going to be a little bit different, then I go ahead and make that assumption, or not make that assumption. I factor that into my thinking when I'm grading the matchup. But what I'm doing with each of the 17 weeks is I'm grading the individual matchups. I'm not basing it on last year's stats. I'm saying this is what I expect Marshawn Lattimore to do this year. This is what I expect Mike Sanders still to do this year, so on and so forth. So the whole process, the whole matchup grading part takes about 2 weeks. What you see on the big board is roughly about 6 weeks of work between the projections, the matchup grading, and then the organization.
With how gigantic this big board is, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear you say 6 weeks went into it. It's really impressive stuff too. I love to see what you do here for it, Doug. And it's harder to go through 200 players to see how accurate it all is at the end of the season. But I like to think that with the amount of care that went in, this is still very valuable stuff for this particular format.
And I'll just say, this is an ever-changing, just like projections with everybody else changes. Hey, I went in last night and I went through a bunch of these and I changed projections based on what I've either learned through, not so much I've learned through the preseason, but you don't want to say any or some of it's vibes. A little bit of it is vibes, but just what we're hearing, what makes sense. Because what's odd is you go through the 6 weeks and you're thinking all the investment I put into it, but then your mind changes, right? Your mind is allowed to change, and that's the thing. I think that we don't have enough of that in the fantasy space. Is that once you get locked into a player, you're apparently it says in the fantasy Bible somewhere that you must stick with that guy, and that's not how it is. Sometimes your hates become your loves, and sometimes your loves becomes your hates, and that's just reading the tea leaves and staying current.
Definitely. Looks like we're starting to get antsy for the mock draft here, so I just want to go over the format that we're going to be going here tonight. So with 10-team, 1 quarterback starting rosters, pretty simple stuff. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, 1 defense/special teams, and 1 kicker. So easy peasy stuff. We have 6 bench to deal with tonight. So we've got grand total of 16 rounds. So 160 total players or defensive units will be selected. So without further ado, Doug, I'm ready to get into it. Are you ready, my friend?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm going to hit that start button, and away we go with Dan the Man kicking off at the 101 spot here, taking Ja'Marr Chase. Pretty easy pick. Usually it's just been between Ja'Marr Chase and Bijan Robinson this year. Very rarely do we see anybody else taken at the 101. Doug, do you see any other reason not to go Ja'Marr or Bijan in the first couple of picks?
Now they're kind of in their own tier, and you mentioned the SSI earlier. I believe they're the only 2 players I have in my SSI that are above 10, and 10's a really good score. I'll just put it that way. It's a really good score. I have a couple that are knocking on the door, but those 2 guys are my 10 SSI guys.
Yeah, and being that we were just talking about SSI, that's definitely a big deal, especially even for the high stakes format as well. Justin Jefferson got taken at the 103 by Aiden White. I'm seeing a lot of veterans that are managing some ticky-tack, like soft tissue injuries and some nagging hamstring issues like what Jefferson is going through right now. That's making a lot of fantasy managers nervous for their upcoming redraft leagues. I'm not falling for this, Doug. I think Justin Jefferson is going to be fine. Are you reading anything different that should make fantasy managers worry?
No, the only thing I would be concerned about is that hamstring. But other than that, it sounds like that's just abundance of caution that they're using with that hamstring, just because it seems like no one else in that wide receiver core staying healthy. But I talked about it in one of my articles. Jefferson's average season when he's been healthy. I mean, 3 of the last 4 seasons, he's been healthy. So his averages are something like 113 catches, 1,500 plus yards, and 9.5 touchdowns. You want to talk about a freaking floor? There's your freaking floor. So I'm not worried about him as long as he's healthy.
Yep, I think I'm with you on that one, Doug. I see no reason to worry either until it just becomes a bigger thing. I feel like it's like that with Matthew Stafford as well, where we got a lot of people worried about his nagging injuries that he's had for at least a decade now. But as far as I'm concerned, he is playing until we hear otherwise, because he's just that type of quarterback where Sean McVay has to have him dragged off the field in order to get him to not play. So, what's your take on Stafford's situation right now? Should I be more worried than I am?
Well, I think he came back to full practice today. We should have some concern, but he's played through some serious back injuries dating back to his time in Detroit. So, as far as I'm concerned, there, yes, have some concern, but I'm not bumping down Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams right now because of it.
I'm not either, despite the fact that Puka Nacua did not go in the first round here. But in a 10-team league, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because the wide receivers that were taken so far are still going to be studs this year no matter what. Amon-Ra is still the guy for the Lions. Brian Thomas Jr. is still the guy. Malik Neighbors is not going to see anything worse happen with Russ Wilson throwing him the football. If anything, it's probably going to make it better than Danny Dimes or anybody else did. And I see that you went CeeDee Lamb followed by Drake London. I still love both of those guys, and I feel like a lot of people are still sleeping on the Cowboys because they were just absolutely horrendous last season. And with a new head coach this year, a new defensive coordinator, a lot of new coaches, What can we expect out of the Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb connection? Is he worth that third wide receiver off the board?
I certainly think so. I have him as my wide receiver too. The thing with Dallas though, okay, we already have CeeDee Lamb wide receiver one finish from a couple years ago. You already kind of said it with the Dallas situation being what it was last year. Assuming Dak is healthy, we're getting, I think you can pretty much write and pin 150 plus targets. And then from there, you're getting a great environment for great fantasy environment, because the running game is going to be lackluster at best. The defense isn't going to be what it used to be. Therefore, I think you're looking at a primo environment for passing.
Yeah, because I've always pointed this out whenever Dak Prescott is healthy, is that when he can avoid injury, he is a top 10 quarterback. He's always been on pace to be a top 10 quarterback. Whether or not that's true anymore still remains to be seen, but as far as I'm concerned, it's true until it's not, which is a very famous saying that I have with Lou Brunson, which sometimes we'll use it for a convenient narrative when we want to be dismissive of something when it goes against our own egos, but that's a whole different story. But I mean, Doug, do you see any concerns with Dak Prescott now that he's entering age 30 and after 9 seasons at this point?
I mean, look, that I won't say that hamstring was a fluky thing last year, but I don't think we have too many instances of hamstrings being torn off bones. And so as long as that's healthy, as long as that has healed, as long as he's feeling better there, no, I'm not overly concerned about him doing that again. I'm sure that's been repaired. He's been performing in camp, been doing his usual thing in camp. So I'm not concerned about him, and I don't buy into the whole injury prone tag. So let's not have that discussion.
I agree with you. We're definitely going to avoid that discussion. But the only thing I will say about Dak Prescott is that he's not the type to get some ticky-tack injury. If he gets hurt, it is freaking serious. Like I definitely feel bad for the guy over the years, where not just the hamstring issue, but he's had some awful things happen to his legs over the years. But that's all behind him. He's healthy until he's not. But the first few quarterbacks that went off the board are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at the 309 and 310. Maybe I'm just an older guy, Doug, but it's weird to me that these quarterbacks are now going off the board in the third round, even in a 10-team league, and that's normal now because there's rushing upside. Where 10 years ago, that would have been seen as stupid. And where Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson went these days at the 309 and 310, is that about right for where they should be going in this format?
In a teamer, this feels a little bit early, but I have Lamar Jackson as my 24th ranked player. So I mean, we're quibbling over maybe 4 or 5 spots at most here. Josh Allen, I have more of a back end of the third round kind of guy in 12 teamers. So I feel like this is about 4 or 5 spots too early for him.
Yeah, and I just went Jaden Daniels at the 407, which I don't usually start to look at quarterbacks until a little later, which me admitting that just now might be a little detrimental to my draft strategy in case anybody from my leagues are listening. But, I mean, it's not exactly a secret either. That's something that I've always tried to hold myself to. But Jalen Hurts got taken by Dan the Man at 410. I've told this story before. I'll tell it one more time. I drafted Jalen Hurts around there last year, and then Jaden Daniels didn't go until the third to last round just because he was still on the board. And I was like, well, the value's too crazy. I'll take a second quarterback and just trade one of them. I thought I was going to be trading Jaden Daniels, but I ended up trading Jalen Hurts just because Daniels is just a better, more opportunistic with his passes. And I ended up trading Jalen Hurts for Devontae Smith, which I needed the wide receiver depth, and I just felt like it worked out. I won the championship, so who am I to complain?
Amen. Amen.
So I just took Terry McLaurin to stack with Jaden Daniels as well. Terry McLaurin finally taken off the pup. His hold-in is coming to a close. He does not appear to be getting traded by the Washington Commanders. We'll talk about Brian Robinson in a bit, but Terry McLaurin should, even at age 29, should still be the guy, even though they added Deebo Samuel. Can we expect similar production from Terry McLaurin compared to last year?
Well, I think we're talking about. Let me make my pick here. Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, I think we have to account for the touchdown luck from last year. What was it, 13 touchdowns? And again, that's going to come from playing with a better quarterback than he's ever played with. I get it, but with the amount of camp that he's missed, and now with some more weapons in place, I think he's going to be what he usually is, which is about a 75, 80 catch guy, 1,000-yard receiver. But I don't think we're going to see 13 touchdowns again. I think it's going to be more like 8 or 9. But assuming he gets in, assuming the contract thing kind of becomes a non-issue here in the next 2 weeks, I'm willing to take him as a wide receiver too. But there's still enough concern with that. I'm not buying him I'm not buying the dip with him right now.
So, and then likewise with Deebo Samuel, the San Francisco 49ers, I always felt used Deebo in too much of a gadget player, where that hurts for fantasy purposes, because it's not that common we see gadget players be fantasy friendly. So now that he's arrived in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, does he continue being used in the same ways, or can we expect him to be used as a true wide receiver?
I don't think he'll be as gadgety as he was with San Francisco, but I think part of the reason that we're hearing the stuff we're hearing about Brian Robinson and so on and so forth is because they are going to use him maybe 2 or 3 carries a game. I think he will still get work in the running game. I just don't think it's going to be as much as it used to be with San Francisco.
And I told you I wanted to bring up Brian Robinson in a bit here, who appears to be getting traded at this point, being that they're not having him suit up in preseason anymore. His time with the Commanders appears to be over. They're looking to ship him. Assuming Brian Robinson does indeed get traded, does that mean Deebo's going to have to take some carries depending on who they get back?
I think so. I think that's part of the plan anyway. But I think it's going to be early downs. We're looking at early downs. We're going to look at Krosky Merritt. We'll be looking at, and let me make sure my guy's still there. Krosky Merritt and Chris Rodriguez, I think will be the early down guys. Austin Eckler, and then Deebo will mix in. So I think Deebo will actually take away a little bit from Eckler, but not to the point where we're going to change Eckler's draft position all that much. Let me go ahead and select one of my guys this year.
Oh, you're an RJ Harvey guy.
Apparently. Yes. So reason being, I'll go ahead and just explain that one real quick. We're looking at Sean Payton's backfields annually take 120 to 130 targets. That's pretty much been going back to the Reggie Bush years. We're not going to call RJ Harvey the next Reggie Bush. We're not calling him the Darren Sproles, but what he is the best receiving option out of that backfield right now. So I think we can safely project him for 60 plus targets, maybe even 70. And anytime we have a running back with 50 to 60 catch upside, and he's also with potential of maybe 150 plus rushes, yeah, I'll take that as with the receiver heavy build that I have, and then be able to have that as my RB2. Yeah, I'll sign me up.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of wild comparisons with RJ Harvey, where being that he's entering a Sean Payton offense, there's a lot of rumor that's been saying he's going to be used like Alvin Kamara potentially was. But I don't think I see that out of RJ Harvey right away. He's got good hands for a running back, but my big fear is that it's still going to be a committee between him, J.K. Dobbins, and then whoever the heck else, whether it's Estime or whoever they could get to take carries with the football to form a 3-back committee where, I mean, it's not going to be split evenly across all of them, but does RJ Harvey, is he a guy that's going to need some time to get used to the NFL behind J.K. Dobbins, or are we going to see him pick up mighty quick based on what you might have read about the Broncos so far?
That's a good question. I think people are underrating J.K. Dobbins because I think he's going to handle the majority of the carries. If you let me look here real quick, for Harvey, I have him with a 31% carry share and a 14% target share. And with J.K. Dobbins, I have him a little bit further down. I have him at 38% carry share and not much work in the receiving game. I'm going to go ahead and make a pick real quick, or maybe I won't.
Oh?
Thought I had more time than that. Oh. All right. Okay. I guess I'll make... Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Not exactly what I had in mind, but I did move him up the board last night. So anyway, So I think that Denver backfield is going to be not disappointing from a fantasy perspective. I think it's going to be hard to pick. But if there's going to be someone that's going to be consistent, and that team is going to be good, so they're going to be playing in positive game script. So I wouldn't mind, and I don't mind sharing this with you, Evan, in case you want to snipe him from me. I'm probably going to back in this with J.K. Dobbins in the next couple rounds because I want it, especially in like a best ball format. I'll just be more than happy to let the computer decide which guy in the Denver backfield is going to go off, because I think both of them will. I think it'll be hard to predict, but I think both of those guys will go off.
You got to be careful when you say stuff like that on this show, Doug, because my mock drafters love sniping, and if you mention a player, chances are he's getting picked within like 5 or 6 picks from the time you say the player's name. So we'll have to see if anybody in between you and me ends up taking J.K. Dobbins, which I doubt this early, but we have gone through a lot of running backs so far, so it's entirely plausible at this point, because Aaron Jones is not looking as promising, and neither is Caleb Johnson yet, needing time to get used to the NFL. But I wanted to get back to your Travis Hunter pick as well, being that Hunter had his upper body injury. They're not naming anything specific. They just called it something that's not that serious. He's not going to miss a lot of time. So he's expected to play a Deion Sanders-like role. And I'm sure he's got excellent cardio and energy for all that. But De'Ami Brown is expected to be the wide receiver 3 for that offense. Is this good for a depth option like a De'Ami Brown in the Jaguars offense?
Well, yeah. Are you asking me if De'Ami Brown's a good depth option, or are you asking me if Hunter's a bad pick?
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say Hunter is a bad pick, but should people not be sleeping on De'Ami Brown in the later rounds?
Oh, without question. I'll be more than happy to scoop up De'Ami Brown. Maybe not in a 10-teamer, but I guess it all depends on how many rounds those drafts go. But yeah, I'm looking at De'Ami Brown as a solid wide receiver 5 because, and I've made this case several times, and the only way I'm taking Hunter in a 14 team or in a 10-team format is if he's my 4th receiver, because I think he's going to get hurt. So let's be clear about that. But getting back to De'Ami Brown, if I'm right and Hunter has trouble staying healthy, which he did at Colorado and Jackson State, De'Ami Brown all of a sudden becomes the wide receiver 2 in a Liam Cohen offense. So yeah, sign me up for that as wide receiver 5. We're not talking about somebody who has massive upside, but we're talking about somebody who in a deeper league has flex worthy potential.
Yeah, no, I definitely scooped him back up in my dynasty league, even though he is the wide receiver 3 in that offense. But, granted that, Travis Hunter is going to be everywhere at once, which means, unfortunately, with the state of the game of football, his chances of injury is probably going to be a bit higher, being that he's playing on both sides of the football. But I'm not saying we should be hoping for that by anybody else. And Aiden White, you took the Eagles defense/special teams at 903. I see what you did there, sir. Very bold strategy. You'll have to see if that pays off for you in the regular season. So I'm going to take Mixon here at the 904, being that I can stash him in an IR slot and then go get somebody else on the waiver wire. But,
let me ask you about that. What do you expect? What do you expect out of Mixon? Do you expect maybe just a missed week or two, or Go ahead. Sorry.
Being that I've already drafted 3 running backs at this point, I don't really care how much time Mixon misses, because I could just stick him in an IR slot, and however long he needs to get over that foot injury is however long he needs. Mixon has been a pretty consistent, skilled running back throughout his whole career. He's a great runner, but not so much a great pass catcher, not so much a great blocker. He doesn't really offer a whole lot else besides being a great runner. I'm not saying he sucks. I'm just saying I know what I'm going to get out of him. And if I need like solid volume where I know he's going to be the goal line guy when he gets back too, that he's going to give me those red zone potential fantasy points when he comes back, because Houston can move the ball.
Fair enough. I have him so far down on my board, it's not even funny. So we will, I won't say we will agree to disagree there, but I will not be having any shares of him this year.
Yeah, if he falls my way, I'll take him. But if somebody else wants to stash him, go right ahead. I'll grab somebody else as well. So, speaking of running backs, I wanted to get to Aiden White's concern here. If my browser will, there we go. He says, I feel like I'm the only Harvey hater in the world. Yeah, the opportunity is there, but I just don't think he's any good. Unfortunately, the opportunity is there, but there's 50 other backs in Denver. I don't think I agree with this directly, Doug. I think Aiden has a little bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about Harvey, but let's just say I preferred to draft Caleb Johnson over RJ Harvey in my dynasty rookie draft. What would you add on top of what Aiden had to say here?
I think the concerns are legitimate. I'll just go back to what I said before about the Denver backfield. Sean Payton's backfields have consistently churned out 120, 130 targets. You tell me who's going to get the targets, assuming this is the same, and there's no reason to assume that it won't be. Is J.K. Dobbins seeing more than 20, 25 targets? Probably not. Audric Estime? Probably not. Jaleel McLaughlin? Probably not. So now we're getting at a point where I don't think it's a lot to say if history holds up. Again, let's just assume 120 targets that Harvey's going to see 60 of them. I don't think that's a huge assumption. And if we're going to assume 50 catches, the history of running backs with 50 catches being at least RB2s is pretty good.
As you're making this next pick here, I'll point out that Aiden White replied to Lou Brunson in the comments here, being that Lou's also not an RJ Harvey guy. Aiden White also said, glad someone else doesn't like the 24-year-old 5'8" running back who got carried by that University of Central Florida system. Again, I don't think I necessarily agree with that either, but I don't know if there's much more for you to say on top of that, Doug.
No, I get it. I mean, if you didn't watch Harvey, I had him well down on my prospect list when we were doing draft coverage because he's 24. That's the only reason I had him down that far. The guy is very explosive. The guy will he won't need more than probably 12 touches to be viable. Not, am I saying he's everybody's RB2 in fantasy? Absolutely not. Am I saying that he could be that? And this is another reason why I want to back it up with Dobbins, is because I think Dobbins is going to see the most touches. But with all that being said, I think, especially if we're playing best ball, I want all the kinds of explosiveness in my backfield, and I'm getting it.
And the last thing I'll bring up that Aiden White also brought up is that Harvey averaged almost 4 yards per carry before contact, leading college football by over half a yard, but won't be seeing that in the league. Yeah, definitely not his rookie year as he gets used to NFL talent, but that's what developing behind J.K. Dobbins is for, right?
Something like that. Yeah, and it's again, we're buying the utility in the passing game here. I don't know that he's going to average more than 10 carries a game, but if we get 10 carries and 5 catches, now we're cooking with a little bit of gas.
Speaking of the Denver Broncos, I love Evan Ingram in the tight end fantasy space this year. I mean, I took him as my second tight end behind Brock Bowers. Being that we have 2 flex spots, I don't mind starting a double tight end. Maybe that's just the DFS guy in me that likes going double tight end, but I like doing it where the fantasy points are there too. And if anything happens to Brock Bowers, I love the potential that Ingram has to bounce back in Sean Payton's system, where the Broncos just have not had an elite tight end since Julius Thomas. And Bo Nix loved targeting the tight end in college at Oregon. So, Doug, I'd love to hear what you think that Evan Ingram could possibly do on the Denver Broncos in his first year in Payton's system.
Evan, I'm going to tell you, if I had not taken Trey McBride, I would have been all over Evan Ingram probably 3 rounds before you took him. He's my tight end 4.
Ooh, all right.
That's the only reason I didn't take Evan Ingram, and he was on my queue. He was on my queue before you did. So you took him. So I think I have him. I think I have projected for something like 70 catches and 5 touchdowns. Would not surprise me if he goes for 90 and 90 catches, 6 to 8 touchdowns. When Peyton is convinced he has his joker, he takes advantage of his joker, and he's convinced that Evan Ingram is his joker.
I've also been seeing a lot of hype for a lot of other tight ends this year, too. The Colston Loveland is looking really good in preseason. I haven't been watching much of Tyler Warren, but he was also selected just after Ingram as well. I don't have a lot of confidence in the rookie tight ends this year only. I think Loveland and Warren are going to be great NFL tight ends for years to come, but I just don't think they're ready to hit the big stage yet, considering the state of the Colts offense. First of all, they don't even know who's going to be starting at quarterback long term. And then Colston Loveland is also going to be sharing some targets with Cole Kmet, being that he's in his final year with the Chicago Bears as well. In redraft, is Loveland or Warren a smart pick as your tight end one?
In Dynasty, I'm going to favor Loveland over Warren, primarily because of the quarterback situation being what it is. But just leave it at that. In redraft, I'm going to go with Warren slightly over Loveland. Just too many mouths to feed in Chicago, and I think there will be games where we see Loveland and this is why he was the 10th pick in the draft. But you also got to feed DJ Moore, you got to feed Roman Dunze, you got to feed Luther Burden, DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet. They're going to be running plenty of two tight end personnel. 12 personnel settings. So Cole Kmet is going to siphon some targets away from him. So maybe in 2026 we're talking about not Cole Kmet. We're talking about Colston Loveland as a top 5-6 tight end, but I don't think that's happening this year.
I have to agree as well. We're not going to see that this year, and Tyler Warren definitely has the easier path to production, being that Josh Downs and Michael Pittman, I like them, but I don't see how they're going to flourish in a Shane Steichen team where he just does not have firm leadership over the players regarding the Indianapolis team culture that I just do not like at all, where you got guys that are just showing up late for team meetings, sleeping in team meetings. Anthony Richardson taking him out of the game because he needed a break, I say in air quotes. It's just a mess down there right now. So hoping for a better future for rookies down there, as they probably need to rebuild despite all the talent that they've got. But yeah, Colston Loveland, man, I love what you said about the Bears too, having too many mouths to feed, because I'm still slapping myself trying to wake myself up thinking, is this the same Bears team he just also mentioned? Because we've never had I cannot remember the last year where we had too many mouths to feed in an offense.
Yeah, without question. Again, that's the Ben Johnson effect, but still, it's I'll just leave it. It'll be interesting. How about that? It'll be interesting. But let me add one other thing. I think even with, and we're not going to be talking about Luther Burden, I'm sure, in this draft, but I'm sure you saw at least part of the preseason game last night. Of all people, they think that Olamide Zaccheaus is going to get some early season work.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if they have an early bye, but how many frustrated owners are there going to be out there when Olamide Zaccheaus has more targets than Luther Burden through 4 weeks?
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of non-Bears fans, and maybe even some Bears fans that are going to be disappointed that Burden has to develop in the NFL. There's a reason that he's pretty much in an even split with snaps and targets from the starting whoever they have in a quarterback, and sharing with Zaccheaus and Burden, because Burden needs to develop in the Ben Johnson system. And this is exactly what I want to see out of this offense, because we don't want to throw Burden to the wolves too early.
Yep. I think we're going to see probably the first month. I think post-bye it'll be a different story, but we saw him returning some, I believe it was returning a punt last night. I think it's going to be special teams duty and the occasional gadget touch. I think we will see his role develop as the season goes on, but I think by that point he'll already have been dropped in a few leagues, and then that's when you make the strike. I'm going to interrupt myself here, and I'm going to take the boy that everyone is buzzing about these last couple of days. You know who I'm talking about.
Here it comes. Bam!
Exactly.
Corey Krosky-Merritt, the 7th round draft pick for the Washington Commanders, looking really, really good in training camp, looking really, really good in preseason. But is he really going to be the successor to Brian Robinson, assuming he gets traded?
So I think I may have played this out already. I think he'll share early down work. And I want to say share will be more like 80-20, share early down work with Chris Rodriguez. I think we're looking at 3-man backfield with Debo, plus Debo. So he'll share some early down work. Let's call it 80-20 with Chris Rodriguez. Austin Eckler will get the majority of the third down work. And then we'll throw in Debo Samuel for about 3 or 4 carries and, maybe some screens. But The thing is, I'm going to tell people eventually. I'm going to tell people in my next article, which is going to hit the FF Today site tomorrow morning or afternoon, to draft Krosky Merritt like you would draft Brian Robinson, but just with more. He brings more explosiveness to the table. And I want to say this real quick since we're on the subject. He didn't come across my radar until the East-West Shrine game, and I don't usually watch the East-West Shrine game with the intent of finding future stars or future fantasy starters. I'm hoping to see something that will impress me. And by golly, if Krosky Merritt, usually in those All-Star games, there's not a player that just stands out. JCM worked at a different speed than everybody else in that game. It was so mind-blowing to see him run versus what everybody else was doing. And so I don't need to be sold on JCM.
Yeah, no, I don't think I kind of need to be sold on JCM because the Commanders have not had a great running back, at least a solid lead running back. I cannot remember their last guy that was the case. There's a Commanders fan that I'm sure would be able to tell me faster than I can think of it, but
back in the day, you had Stephen Davis.
Yeah, the Stephen Davis, of course. I don't know if that was the last guy, but even then, they had a bunch of names that people have forgotten about over the years that they tried to push forward, but never really anybody on the level of like Austin Eckler. I mean, even though he's past his prime at this point, but I guess I just need to see more out of Krosky Merritt against starters in the NFL to be convinced.
And that's fair. I mean, I think if you're going to be drafting him as the RB3, you're probably making a mistake. But I think you hope he evolves into that. I think just the way he's apparently pushed out Brian Robinson, I say apparently, I think it's going to take that much time for the coaching staff to then say, hey, okay, you're our guy, or at least you're our sole early down guy. So yeah, again, and especially in a 10-teamer, if he's the RB3, then you're doing it wrong. You know, you better have in a 10-teamer, he better be your RB5, RB6. But I just got done with the Kings Classic here last weekend, 14 teamers, and I was thrilled to get him in like the 11th, 12th round of that as my RB4, RB5. Of course, that was before the news. But my point being is still, he's still an upside swing. He's not he lock him in for 200 touches because Brian Robinson wasn't that, and he's established.
Yeah, B-Rob has always been kind of seen as a platoon back in the first place that was kind of expected once he entered the NFL. Granted, nobody expected him to get shot in the leg, I believe it was, when there were guys that were trying to rob him at gunpoint in his car. Very glad he survived that too. That was rough. He didn't have to really miss time for it either. I had drafted him back then when he was a rookie in my Dynasty League, and I saw the news and I just wanted to throw my laptop against the wall because I was just like, foiled again by something completely circumstantial. And that's just the game we play, though, right? You never know when anything seemingly random will happen.
And I feel like I've been one of the bigger Brian Robinson supporters, not because I thought he was hashtag good at football. I mean, great at football. I should say hashtag great at football. He was what he was. He's what I like to call a sustaining kind of back. He's not one of those guys that's going to blow you away with, oh my God, 4.3 speed. This is the guy I turn on TV and he's running for 70-yard touchdowns. He's not that guy. 98% of running backs in the league aren't that guy. Okay, so let's be clear about the expectations. But sometimes sustaining running backs are good. You like guys who you can count on getting 3 and 4 yards, because sometimes that's the way the league is. A lot of times is you're happy to get 4 yards out of your running back per carry. You hope he can eventually break one, which is, I think, one of the reasons why that JCM is going to eventually take his way into RB3 fantasy RB3 status.
Yeah, and wherever he gets traded, I hope he gets used very much in a fantasy-friendly format, and even to his satisfaction as well for his own career. I wanted to get to Aiden White's last question that he asked a little while ago too. Is there a reason both of y'all took tight end early? Seems to me like less players in the league should mean a lot less need to draft a tight end early, but definitely think I might be wrong there. I think tight end premium has kind of warped people's minds into thinking that tight end doesn't really matter in a regular PPR format. But if you can grab somebody like a Brock Bowers, a Trey McBride, or a George Kittle in the first 4 rounds, how do you justify passing them up?
So my theory on 10 teamers is this. It elevates the onesie positions, especially the elite players at the onesie positions. So you want difference makers. The smaller the league, the more impact that those the elite onesie positions have. So there is a huge difference between let's say Lamar Jackson's your QB1. Okay, there's a huge difference between him and QB10. But my point being is that the gap there isn't as significant as it is at tight end. Trey McBride's my tight end 1. Okay, I would take him in the second round of a 10-teamer, and I was not expecting him to make it back to me in the third round. I would prefer a running back build, but that's not the way the board broke for me, and that's fine.
Okay,
but I have McBride I think I have McBride probably as my 18th ranked player, and I'm not the guy who likes to drafting tight ends that early. Okay, but give me the 100 catch tight end guy who he had 20 red zone targets last year, and 2 of them went for touchdowns. You think that's going to happen again? You understand? You understand if he had caught, if he even had a more real amount, let's say 5 or 6 touchdowns. If he had 4 more touchdowns, he would have outscored Brock Bowers playing 1 less game. Okay, so I'm not trying to campaign for McBride as tight end 1, but what I'm saying is there's going to be a huge difference between Trey McBride and whoever your tight end 10 is, whether it's Tyler Warren or I don't know who. Let's see who else would be. Let's see, Tucker Kraft. Let's go with Tucker Kraft. Big difference between Trey McBride and Tucker Kraft. Somebody is going to be starting Tucker Kraft against me, or be starting David Njoku, for example. Don't tell me that they're on the same level fantasy wise, because they're not. So if I can get that 5 point difference every week, not at least those weeks. Yeah. Anyway, just a huge difference. You look for micro edges in fantasy, and that Trey McBride or Brock Bowers are definitely micro edges that can pay off if you're able to fill up around them, because you don't find elite tight end 1s off the waiver wire very often.
No, and there's just not enough tight ends to make that happen. Well, offenses to promote the tight end that makes that happen either. Yep. I looked this up a little while ago, Doug. Like, over the last 10 years since the 2016 season, the amount of tight ends that average 10 fantasy points per game or more is usually 10 tight ends. So that changes a little bit every year. There might be 9 in one year and 10 in another, and 11 if it's a crazy good year. But it's usually that many tight ends that will average double-digit fantasy points per game, and then everybody else after that, it starts going down 9, 8, 7. And, averages shouldn't mean everything in redraft, but it should at least give you an idea of why tight end is seen as not as valuable compared to wide receiver, where you've got 2 or 3 on any given NFL team that matter the most. And even then 3 might be a bit of a stretch depending on the offense. But so that's the thing. It's interesting to hear you say that you are bigger on Trey McBride than Brock Bowers, where I'm actually going the opposite. I think Brock Bowers is the real deal because of what he was able to do with not 1, not 2, but 3 starting quarterbacks in Las Vegas, where he even had to have Desmond Ridder throwing him the football, and he was still able to do all the damage that he did, even with 5 touchdowns. And I am a big Kyler Murray hater. I cannot stand the guy's arm. I think he's got the most mid arm in the NFL. I mean, I know people make fun of him for his height all the time. I don't care about that. I care about his arm. I think it's not very good. But as far as Trey McBride goes, do you see any validity in my points, and should I be valuing Trey McBride more?
I don't have much difference between the two. If you don't get one, you get the other. I mean, I think I think I had them ranked right next to each other today. I did a little tweaking on projections, and now I think there's like 4 spots difference between the two. My concern at this point is more they really didn't add much in the way of target competition, or at least legit target competition. And that's not to say Jack Besh isn't legit target competition, but I just don't think he's going to see that much playing time this year. I think he was more of a pick for 2026. What I am concerned about is Chip Kelly. And I don't think, I think that was a setup last year. I think it was set up fairly well for him last year, minus the quarterback situation, which was bad. But sometimes that's good for tight ends. When the quarterback situation is as bad as it was last year. Yeah, I hear you, Charlene.
Charlene Erickson says Kyler has done me dirty too many times.
When the quarterback is as bad as it was in Las Vegas last year, sometimes the tight end is the guy that's usually the closest to the quarterback. So you get a lot of 5-yard dumps, a lot of easy passes over the middle. Shouldn't say easy, but easier passes over the middle. But I think I don't want to say there's less competition for targets, because I think that's the same. I just think that the touchdown luck is going to be better for McBride, and I think the targets are going to drop just a little bit for Bowers.
Yeah, because I've been seeing a lot of crazy anti-hype ever since we're gonna call it anti-hype. I guess that's a new term I made up. Ever since Ashton Genty got selected by the Raiders in the first round of this year's draft, everybody's acting like Brock Bowers is no longer going to be tight end 1 as a result, and I'm just sitting here like, wait a minute, what? Ashton Genty's going to be the bell cow guy taking rushes. Yeah, he'll get some dump off throws every now and then, but I mean, so did who's my favorite running back out of Nebraska? Amir Abdullah. Amir Abdullah was getting a lot of work last year on the Raiders too, and he's in his 30s now. But that running backs don't mean tight ends are going to be taking away tight ends' volume. I just don't think that there's enough validity to it where I'm going to be fading Brock Bowers behind Trey McBride as a result. But to me, this just seems like more fear, uncertainty, and doubt, where you just said it yourself, Doug. Whether or not you get Bowers or McBride, you're going to be fine.
Well, you just touched my heart, because you mentioned my favorite. You mentioned your favorite Nebraska guy. I'm from Nebraska. I root for the Huskers. So there you go. And I do remember the days where Amir Abdullah, he was probably our last great running back.
He was a beast as a Corn Husker.
Yeah. I wanted to speak to your point. You were making a point there. And you mentioned Genty, and I'm glad you did, because it's going to be such a small difference that I don't think it's really going to matter that much. I mean, I think we're going to look at Bowers' year 2 totals, and we're going to say that's still damn good for a tight end. And it will be. It still will be 90 plus catches, maybe 100 catches again. It's still going to be damn good. My point being, though, is you bring in Genty. Genty's a capable receiver. You have Jacoby Myers, very capable receiver. Michael Mayer, I don't know how much of a role he's going to play, but I think he's going to siphon some targets. Not many, but some. Those guys all work in the short and intermediate area of the field. The only guy that's going deep is probably Dante Thornton or Trey Tucker, right? None of those guys are going deep. So you have a lot of people competing for short targets. And so I think I think an expectation that Bowers is going to repeat last year is probably, I just don't see it. The Raiders had about, I don't remember where they ranked in pass attempts, but I don't think it was about 630. I think they had about 630 pass attempts last year, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't think they're getting there this year. So I think just by nature of that, I think we're going to see Bowers come down incrementally, just enough that I think that he'll probably be the tight end too. But again, you said it, I said it. If I get Bowers in the mid to late second round, I'm not sweating it. I'm thrilled that he's my tight end 1, and then I'm banging receiver for the next few rounds.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you predict that Bowers accurately gets 90 catches, that's not really something you're gonna get angry about, because he's still your tight end 1, and he's still gonna help you win your league, hopefully, as long as your team is well rounded with the talent otherwise. So yeah, who's gonna get angry that a tight end got 90 catches? Because Tucker Kraft he barely got 70 targets. Like, he didn't even get 70 catches. So to get 90 is pretty freaking good for a tight end.
Exactly. And I think he'll make it up. I think he had 5 touchdowns last year. That Raiders being a better offense this year, I think he may get to 7. But I think the drop in targets is going again. This is not anti-McBride, or this is not anti-Bowers or pro-McBride. This is just I think there's going to be a little bit more balance to that offense than there was last year. And by nature of that, I think it's just going to be slightly less opportunity for Bowers. But he's still I'm going to call him the wide receiver 1. He's still going to be the focal point of that passing game.
Yeah, definitely. So as we're wrapping up the show, I want to get to 2 more questions here. Jamie Perogue asks, streaming defense question. Would you rather take Bengals versus Browns or Cardinals versus Saints for week 1? Doug, are you ready to go there yet?
Well, I'm going to be doing my defensive rankings this week. So to me, it's pretty clear. It's going to be Cardinals versus Saints. Cardinals are going to have an underrated defense in my estimation. Jonathan Gannon is trying to build that defense like what he had in Philadelphia a few years ago. He's going really deep at the defensive line. I'm not saying they're going to be Philadelphia defense. They're not going to be at that level yet, but they have defensive linemen, enough defensive linemen to have a pretty good pass rush. Their secondary isn't quite there yet, but the Saints, man, like I said, I go through each game trying to project matchups and whatnot. This year I added wins and losses. I have trouble predicting the Saints for a win this year. And I'm sure they will. I just don't know. I think I gave them 2 wins, and I felt like I had to do it, which was it was not. I felt like I was forcing them to get 2 wins. So anyway, I think the Cardinals are an underrated defense. The Bengals, I don't know. I could see them screwing this matchup.
Yeah, because it is very tempting to take the Bengals defense, considering that the Browns are looking absolutely awful again this year. But even then, the Bengals defense does not really have anybody to write home about anymore. And the way they handled Trey Hendrickson is just atrocious.
Would you be surprised if Joe Flacco comes out and throws for 3 touchdowns?
Against the Bengals? Absolutely not.
There you go. I don't think Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler or, God forbid, Jake Haener, I don't think those guys are doing that. So,
save us if it's Jake Haener. My God. I want to get to one more question here by RS8187, which is my younger brother, Ryan. How often do you take offensive lines in account when drafting running backs? Or do you focus more on talent and opportunity, regardless of who is blocking for them?
Well, that's part of my preseason matchup analysis is grading the offensive lines and figuring out how they factor. Actually, when I'm grading the matchups for the running backs, I'm doing that with my offensive line grades, run blocking, pass blocking, and total blocking off to the side. I always want that as a constant reminder of why I'm assigning a green label to a guy, a green label to a running back, or a yellow or a red. So I definitely take that into account. I would say in cases of extreme talent and extreme opportunity, we'll talk Ashton Jeanty for example here. I think the Raiders have an underrated offensive line, but Ashton Jeanty is going to make the offensive line look a lot better because he has extreme talent and because he should have extreme opportunity. So I take talent and opportunity more into account when the talent and the opportunity is great. But when I'm trying to decide between 2 what I would think are evenly matched running backs, then offensive line comes very much into play.
It's kind of like back in the New York Giants days when Saquon made the Giants offensive line look way better than they actually were.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a perfect answer said too. So one more comment here. Lou Brunson mentions giving the Saints a win feels like charity this year. I feel that struggle, Doug.
Appreciate it, Lou. And believe me, I'm going through each team's schedule. So it was. And you'd think in the NFC South, you'd think they could get 1 or 2 just by virtue of the division they're playing in, but that team, it's not a good team. It's not a good team.
Oh, it's going to be so ugly this year. Gosh. Well, before we start to throw up in our mouths thinking about the Saints, I want to get to some ads here before we leave the show tonight. Starting with the Optimus Fantasy Discord server. If you're not in our Discord community yet, what are you even doing with your life? I'm serious. This is where the real action happens 24/7, and it's completely free to join. We've built an incredible community where you can get everything you need to dominate your leagues all year long. We're talking best ball advice, DFS lineups, live NFL draft coverage with real-time updates, deep dynasty discussions where we debate rookie values and trade strategies, and some of the sharpest NFL betting insights you'll find anywhere. But here's the thing. It's not just about the content, it's about the community. You've got thousands of fantasy fanatics in there sharing advice, breaking news, celebrating wins, and yes, commiserating over those brutal bad beats. Whether it's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., someone's always in there ready to talk ball. Check out the link in the show description now. It takes 30 seconds to join, it's completely free, and I guarantee it'll level up your fantasy game. Come hang with us. Also, Fast Draft Fantasy. All right, fantasy fam, let's talk about Fast Draft. They're absolutely revolutionizing the best ball game right now. They just dropped something called the Rabbit, and this is a game changer. We're talking about a true 15-round best ball draft that includes quarterbacks, no kickers, no defenses, just the positions that matter. And here's the kicker, pun mildly intended. You've got a 20-second clock per pick, which means you can knock out an entire draft in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes! Plus, they've got a $50,000 prize pool up for grabs. And because you're a part of the Optimus family, Fast Draft is hooking you up with a $50 deposit match when you use promo code OPTIMUS. That's OPTIMUS. So head over to fastdraft.app, get that deposit match, and start crushing some rabbit drafts. Trust me, once you try that 20-second clock, you'll be addicted. Doug, thank you so much for joining me this evening. It was fantastic getting to analyze a bunch of talent and getting to show off what you're offering to the fantasy space too.
Appreciate you having me. And anytime what you can draft is just another practice toward the real thing. So I don't care if this is a 10-teamer versus what I'm used to in the high stakes 12-team crowd. It's another chance to just exercise those muscles. So thank you for having me, and I had a good time.
I know exactly. Yeah, I know exactly how that is. I mean, hosting this show definitely has given me no excuses to mess up any of my drafts anymore. Ladies, gentlemen, and all those in between or outside of it, this has been another episode of Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Doug Orth, for joining us this evening. Please be sure to follow him on Blue Sky at dougorth.bsky.social. For more of Doug's work, be sure to visit thehuddle.com, fftoday.com, and fantasypoints.com so you don't miss out on future articles by Doug. And while you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the Football Diehards so that you don't miss out on future episodes. You can also find the Football Diehards anywhere you prefer to get your podcast. Doug, tell the people what else you have coming up over the next few weeks or months that they should be checking out.
Well, getting busy with the huddle for sure. I'm going to be bringing in some writers that when we're going to have we're going to develop our regular season content. That because again, I took over the huddle in mid-July, which is not a great time in terms of trying to plan out the regular season content or even the regular. So I mean that's kind of evolving as we move along. So I'll be bringing in some people hopefully this week and getting that ball rolling. As far as like with FF today, I'll be doing another round of big boards. Big board PPR big board number version 2.0 will drop tomorrow. Then I'll have 4 more non-PPR half point PPR, Superflex, and FFPC will drop over the next 2 weeks. So be on the lookout for those. Those will go 225 deep. So you should have more than enough players to get through your, 18 to 20 round draft.
Love to hear it. And Jamie Perogue actually called me out because I actually didn't ask you the question that I ask everybody that I have join me. Thank you, Jamie, for holding me accountable. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so I can't really bring us back. But those of you who are have an opinion one way or another who had the best draft, please leave it in the comments below and let us know who had the best draft in tonight's episode. We would definitely love to read it. So thank you to everyone who also joined us for the mock draft this evening, because it is darn near impossible to do a mock draft show without folks like you mocking with us. Next week will be the final episode for the 2025 off season. Unfortunately, Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan has to go on hiatus because we're going to get into September really soon. And, well, who mocks in the middle of the season, right? I mean, I'm sure some people do, but, I mean, we don't do that around here, unfortunately. We're going to be running next week a 8-team, 1-quarterback redraft PPR mock, continuing to cater to those of you who are in smaller leagues. Joining me for that one is affiliated with the Get Right Fantasy Network and the Fantasy Football Tavern. With that combination, I'm going to let you all figure out who that is.
if you would like to join us for that draft, please join the Optimus Fantasy Discord server so you can get first dibs on a spot. You'll find the link in the description. This has been Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan right here on Optimus Fantasy. Have a great night. I'll see you all next week. Take care.